Hello guys, it's Revolution. So on this video we are going to be discussing yet again who is stronger between Gogeta and Vegito. Now with Gogeta heavily rumoured to be partaking in the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie coming out in just a few months. I'm so hyped. The argument of which is the strongest fusion between Potara and Metamaran Fusion, Gogeta or Vegito, has risen yet again. Now obviously Dragon Ball Super Broly is going to be a continuation of Dragon Ball Super, and in Dragon Ball Super in the Future Trunks saga we saw Vegito return to the Dragon Ball franchise and fight the first Potara fused villain, merged Zamasu. But in that very arc, the Potara fusion was certainly retconned from what we were believed it was from the Buu saga. Has it been retconned enough for Gogeta to easily claim a victory? That's what we're going to discuss in this video. But before we begin, in an interview with Akira Toriyama himself, Toriyama revealed that more than 2 people can actually fuse in Metamaran Fusion. If there was to be a third person joining Goku and Vegeta in their Metamaran Gogeta fusion, who would you like it to be and why? Drop your thoughts down in the comments section. If you're new to this channel and you love Dragon Ball content, Dragon Ball discussions, whether that be theories, power scaling, verse battles, breakdowns on the latest news, anime and manga issues, you will love this channel, Revolution. We talk about Dragon Ball multiple times a week. Hit that subscribe button and the bell button next to it to be notified when the next Dragon Ball discussion drops. Please do keep lending me your energy, keep smashing that like button. Every like is truly appreciated. Lend me your energy and feel free to share my content as well. So obviously both Vegito and Gogeta are made up of Goku and Vegeta, but which is the strongest fusion, Potara fused Vegito or the Metamaran fusion of Gogeta? Well, I'm sure if you've been following my channel for a while, you'll know that I've done a video on this topic before, Vegito vs Gogeta. Basically in that video I advocated that Vegito was definitely the strongest due to the A times B multiplier suggested in the super exciting guides. There have been other things that have suggested Potara Fusion is stronger as well as events in the manga itself, but we'll get to that in just a moment. But without a shadow of doubt, Dragon Ball Super has retconned Potara Fusion at least to some degree. In the Buu saga we were told that Potara Fusion was permanent, whereas Metamaran Fusion lasted approximately 30 minutes until the 2 fusees defused. Obviously in the Buu saga Goku and Vegeta did defuse despite using Potara Fusion, but it was always a theory of many people in the fandom that it was something to do with entering Buu's biological system. Obviously you could argue that that was just a fan theory and that it wasn't truly a retcon, it was just simply never answered, but that would be an argument from silence. It was simply never implied that Potara Fusion was permanent for gods and had a time limit for mortals way back in the Buu saga. Sure, they weren't thinking about it in the long term because obviously after the Buu saga, Dragon Ball Z came to an end. And we didn't see Vegito in Dragon Ball GT. But that wasn't the only thing that seemed to be somewhat of a retcon in Dragon Ball Super. Now this one isn't necessarily a retcon because people have questioned whether this statement was simply death of the author or it just wasn't advocated very well. As I've often mentioned in my videos, the storytelling in Dragon Ball Super was often too vague and quite poor at times. It wasn't necessarily just something that was exclusive to Dragon Ball Super. You get moments like this throughout the entirety of Dragon Ball, through to Dragon Ball Z, through to Dragon Ball Super. So upon Caulifla and Kale using the Potara Fusion in episode 114, this is what Vados, the Angel of Universe 6, had to say about Potara Fusion. The new body and personality born from a Potara fusion are more than the sum of their parts, and their power increases tens of times. When I first saw episode 115 and Vados came out with that statement, I was like, say what? But basically Herms has cleared it up and the initial translation was closer to several tens of times, which actually means in the hundreds, which actually aligns with what the Daizenshu 2 said about the character of Vegito. This is what it said, it's on your screen right now. There can be no doubt that his strength measures even greater than that of Super Saiyan 3. We know that Super Saiyan 3 is a 400 times multiplier based on the multipliers we get from the Super Exciting guides. And once again, base Vegito is stronger than Super Saiyan 3 Goku. The Elder Kai concurs with this in the manga itself, and we don't really see base Vegito fight against Buuhan in the manga itself, unlike in the anime where we see him decimate Buuhan when he tells Goku that he probably won't even need to turn into a Super Saiyan to beat Buu when Goku receives the Potara earrings from him. To even be as strong as Buu, never mind Buuhan, that is significantly stronger than Super Saiyan 3 Goku, so it's more than likely far higher than 400 times base. That doesn't disagree with what Vados says. Vados says that it's more than the sum of their parts. But what we at least have here is a little bit of consistency between different sources, official sources for the Dragon Ball franchise, on what this power boost for the Potara Fusion might be. Of course, there's still that A times B multiplier from the Super Exciting guides, but a lot of people have always argued that that specific statement is particularly vague. In fairness, a Vegeta times Goku power boost seems like overkill. However, it hasn't necessarily been contradicted by events that actually occur in the manga or throughout Dragon Ball Super, or at least until Vados' statements anyway. To give it more credence, this statement was in the training section of the Super Exciting guides, which have been stated to have been supervised by Akira Toriyama himself. But if you align Vados' statement with what was stated in the Daizenshu, base Vegeta would at least be a 400 times multiplier, more if we're being brutally honest. I don't believe you can completely discount the A times B multiplier yet, because it still is an official guidebook. However, it is a vague statement and does need to be questioned. There's also a theory circulating right now that what Vados' statement actually means was that it was several tens of times stronger than the strongest form that Caulifla and Kale both possess. Obviously, Caulifla possesses Super Saiyan 2 and Kale possesses the Berserk form. The Berserk form's a little bit stronger than Super Saiyan 2 at the very least. Given how impressed Kale and Caulifla were with Super Saiyan 3 and the fact that in episode 114, Berserk Kale was literally getting smacked about by Super Saiyan God Goku, controlled Super Saiyan Berserk is probably closer to the Super Saiyan 3 multiplier. Now this is just theoretical, but you know what guys, I actually like it because it means that Vados' statement isn't quite death of the author, and it also fits in line with a lot of people's power scaling of how powerful Vegito was in relevance to the Buu saga. After all, when Goku taught the Metamaran Fusion to Trunks and Goten, he believed they could turn Super Saiyan, but he had no idea they could transform into a Super Saiyan 3, and he fully believed that Super Saiyan Gotenks would beat Super Buu, which was a more powerful Buu than the one he previously fought in Fat Buu. So naturally, given the Super Saiyan 3 multiplier, that would make Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks 8 times more powerful than Super Saiyan 3 Goku at the very least. Of course, when the Elder Kai came up with the idea to use Potara Fusion, Buu had just absorbed Gotenks, so he was Buu-Tenks, which obviously would be even more powerful than Gotenks himself, and was literally slapping Ultimate Gohan about. The point of that is, Elder Kai believed base Vegito would be enough against this version of Buu, and obviously that would make Vegito and his base far stronger than Super Saiyan 3 Goku, which is why the theory that I've just talked about could actually make the most sense. Vados did actually say it's more than the sum of their parts. Maybe the transformations are taken into account when she talks about the sum of their parts. However, once again, this is just theoretical for now. Assertion is an important thing for me in power scaling, and this cannot be asserted as of yet. However, just on a final note on Potara Fusion, compatibility does play a huge part in how powerful a Potara Fusion is. The multiplier is not always the same. Even as I mentioned earlier, Potara Fusion is closer to multiplication than it is simple addition according to the Super Exciting guides. Whether that stands anymore, whether it's been retconned in terms of power, it at least gives you an idea on the thinking behind Potara Fusion. For example, when the Supreme Kai Shin, Kabuto Kai, despite growing in power, the Elder Kai literally stated that he would be fodder for Majin Buu if he went and fought him. The increase wasn't quite as big as it was for Vegito, who the Elder Kai kind of implied, at least in the Viz translation of the manga, that he may have gained a boost from the fact that Goku and Vegeta are rivals. Caulifla and Kale were compatible because they're very close friends, and when Universe 7 was considering Potara Fusion in the Tournament of Power in Dragon Ball Super, when Android 17 and Android 18 fusing came into question, they were stated to have good compatibility because they were twins. So in reality, compatibility does play its part in determining how powerful a Potara Fusion will be. Anyway, on to Gogeta, the Metamaran Fusion. Now, a lot of people make the argument that the Elder Kai stated that Potara Fusion was a better fusion than Metamaran Fusion in the Buu saga. However, he didn't quite say it in the regard that most people put forward. All he pretty much said was that it's a more stable fusion. He didn't say it's a more powerful fusion. Obviously, the Elder Kai's claim that Potara Fusion was permanent was ultimately retconned in the Future Trunks saga, at least for mortals, but regardless, even if it was retconned, it doesn't necessarily render everything else the Elder Kai says new, because ultimately he's just a character that is portraying the story from the author's point of view. He's not an actual real person whose character can be brought into question. Fiction, if a character generally gets something wrong, it will be later revealed that he got it wrong, because it will be part of the narrative. Like I said, he didn't particularly say that the Potara Fusion was stronger in terms of multiplier than the regular fusion, but according to the GT Perfect Files guide, the Metamaran Fusion is only a dozens of times multiplier, which could range anywhere from 24 to 96. Some people argue up to 120 times. Now, a 120 times multiplier would be a very powerful boost to your power, in all honesty, but of course, a lot of people are questioning whether this kind of power boost would be enough to beat Broly in the upcoming Dragon Ball Super movie, considering he's going to be even stronger than Jiren. Now, it must be said, this information came from the Dragon Ball GT Perfect Files, official guidebooks for the Dragon Ball GT series. Obviously, the Broly movie, if Gogeta will be in it, will be part of the Dragon Ball Super continuity, and it goes without saying Super and GT are not the same continuities. Obviously, Metamaran Fusion is canon to the mainstream canonicity of Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super, but Gogeta has never actually appeared in Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Super. He's appeared in the Dragon Ball Z movies, and he's also appeared in the Dragon Ball GT series. The Dragon Ball Z movies are technically Dragon Ball Z, of course, but they are considered a different dimension. That's what even Akira Toriyama stated. Even a highball Gogeta multiplier, according to the Dragon Ball GT Perfect Files, isn't going to be enough to compete with a lowballed Vegito multiplier. However, here's the kicker. So even if we go by the lowball Potara figures that we talked about earlier, being at least 400 times, and there's even a consistency now with Vados' statements to potentially support that. If Gogeta is to be in the upcoming Broly movie, and that's still a big if as of the date of making this video, there is no reason why Akira Toriyama would pay any attention to what's stated in the GT Perfect Files. After all, he wasn't even involved in the GT Perfect Files and had minor involvements throughout Dragon Ball GT. He didn't write Fusion Reborn, and he didn't write Dragon Ball GT. Gogeta is a Toei character. If Gogeta is in the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, this will be Akira Toriyama's first iteration of Gogeta. And as we know with Broly, Broly is being repackaged and literally given a major power boost from the Dragon Ball Z Broly movies. Who's to say that he won't do the same with Gogeta? A lot of people are putting forward a potential Ultra Instinct Gogeta to make up that kind of power on the legendary Super Saiyan Broly, who once again is stated to be the strongest enemy they've ever faced, including Awakened Jiren. But what if the Metamaran Fusion's power is retconned? After all, they literally give people power-ups in Dragon Ball for plot purposes. It could go in any direction with this. They could say that Godki's more compatible with a Metamaran Fusion, or Ultra Instinct's more compatible with a Metamaran Fusion. They can do whatever they want. So whilst based on information that we have regarding Potara and Metamaran Fusion, there's no doubt that even if we lowball Potara Fusion, it's still stronger than Metamaran Fusion. We need to bear in mind that for this upcoming movie, the information that we have on Metamaran Fusion may just be ignored. Both fusions pretty much have time limits now. It really just depends on how powerful the fusees are that are using the fusion and what kind of transformations they use. So they pretty much cancel each other out in that regard. Of course, the Potara earrings means you don't need to do a silly dance or learn a silly dance, but at the same time, there has to be a good reason why a Supreme Kai will give you their earrings. And then of course you have to have a Supreme Kai nearby just to use their earring. Whereas if two people know the fusion dance, you can literally do it wherever you want. So I think it's pretty handy knowing both types of fusion. So the answer to is Gogeta stronger than a retconned Vegito? That depends on whether you think Vegito is retconned, whether you based your information on Vegito and Potara Fusion by what the Daizenshu said, or whether you use the Super Exciting Guide's information. Ultimately, based on the information we know about Gogeta from the GT Perfect Files, the answer is simply no. Anyway guys, let me know your thoughts on this down in the comment section. Which is your favourite fusion? Your favourite doesn't have to be based on the power of the fusion, it could be based on the characteristics of the fusion, the design of the fusion. Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comment section. And guys, this is important. Do come follow me on Twitter and Instagram, because you never know when these YouTube channels can get taken down, as we've learnt with recent events. Do follow me on those social media platforms. Then if anything like that ever does happen, you can contact me on those social media platforms. Anyway guys, hit that like button, lend me your energy, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Until next time, Ad Astra.